what made me want to start a carpentry apprenticeship? Well, for me, carpentry was not really an option, it was a choice. For me, growing up, I left school a year early. I left school at the end of grade 11 to pursue a carpentry apprenticeship, and in the lead up to that, my attendance rate was really poor. You know, in grade 10, I started to flunk off school, and then that's when the letter got sent home to my dad. And I came home one day to my stoic father sitting there, and he slid a letter across the table and said, "What's this about?" And read the letter, and yeah, it was how the school was concerned about the way I was going with school and my attendance rate and so on and so forth. And he sat me down and he sort of spoke to me in a way that resonated with me, obviously. Like, for me, there was stuff that my dad would say to me and it would go in one ear and out the other. And this time, for me, it was slightly different. That wasn't the case at all in this scenario. He told me sort of two ways. He said, you can go down this path of being a numpty, not knowing too much and not really achieve anything in your life, or you can take a shot at this path where you're going to achieve something, and within the next 4 years, that piece of paper that you will gain could open an unsurmountable amount of doors for you, depending on what you wanted to do. And for me, I was like, oh, well, carpentry sounds positive. I'll go and do an apprenticeship. And for me, the school actually had a program that every Thursday you would leave school at lunchtime or first break, and you would go up to TAFE Bracken Ridge, and you would first year carpentry modules you would go up there and complete with your teacher, one of your teachers. And for me, that was just a no-brainer. I was like, yeah, sweet, I'm doing it. And then I went to school and like, oh, you know, boys, you can do it. So all the footy boys did it. And so it was cool. So on a Thursday, we'd bail out of there. Dad would pick us up and he'd drive us up to the TAFE College. We'd go to McDonald's on the way, Bracken Ridge. Then we'd have our Maccas at the TAFE just before class. And then we'd go in and cause havoc on the saws and stuff. So, yeah, that was quite enjoyable. So that was probably where I kind of had to make that choice and made a positive one. Did I ever think about quitting the trade? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. During my first and second year, it would go through my head almost every day, every second day. You know, you're the lowest on the pecking order on site. Your best friend is the broom, and you get yelled at a lot. And for me, you know, I didn't use a lot of my initiative. I just didn't really know how to use my initiative. I didn't want to be in anyone's way as well, or be a hindrance on site when I was in my first year, particularly. And that kind of probably got me in more trouble than not. But, you know, I just kept persevering and kept turning up every day. And just sort of the reason why I didn't quit was because I knew at the end of my 4-year term or 4 years of that I was going to have a trade certificate that no one could ever take off me, that I was going to be a qualified carpenter, and I could use that trade anywhere in the world to be a builder or be a carpenter, anywhere, use those skills. What project am I still proud of that I worked on during my apprenticeship? There's probably two that really stand out. There's one in Hamilton in Pine Street. I can't remember the name, or is it Ascot? Pine Street, Ascot, I think it is. We did a massive 3-story thing with a big sort of terraced roofed area up on top of it, and it was a big job, and I was there from start to finish. I was there from, you know, when this was probably my 3rd and 4th year when I was working with these particular builders, and that's when it got good. Your apprenticeship gets good in your 3rd and 4th year. And working on those kinds of projects, you know, I was there with the digger from 7 in the morning, digging footings with the laser level, telling him, yeah, mate, we need to take another 100 mil out, or whatever the case was. I was there from there, tying the steel, pouring the concrete, all the way through to the end of the build. I was there, and that was really good. Also be another one down at Shorncliffe, on Shorncliffe Parade down there. Literally next door to the fish and chip shop, there's a house there. As you're looking at the fish and chip shop from the water where everyone parks their car, on the right hand side, that house there was one that I worked on as an apprentice carpenter, and that was really something special. He was an aircraft engineer, and the slabs had to be certain sizes and all that sort of stuff. And I had to sort of read plans that were a lot different. I was still an apprentice at the time, but my tradie actually taught me how to read those sets of plans. So it was quite cool to be there from the whole build process once again, from foundational stage right through to roof going on. That was really, and everything internally, that was really special. There's a wine cellar in there. There's an elevator for groceries in there. It's a pretty cool little house. How it finally felt to be qualified was, it was awesome. It was an incredible feeling. Trust me, to go in there and finish your last block of TAFE or college theoretical exams, and then go out, finish a bit of time on site. It was really special to get that piece of paper. It really was. I remember being super, super proud of myself for sticking it out, and reminiscing on those times in my first and second year where I was like, what am I doing? Why am I working for this guy? Why did I even roll out of bed? It definitely, it was definitely a really big achievement for me personally to receive that certificate for carpentry. I always worked on residential during my carpentry apprenticeship, so I was always residential. I never sort of branched out into commercial or anything like that. I have worked on commercial sites, but during my apprenticeship it was all residential. And for me, timber was always what I worked with, timber frames. I never really worked, steel frames sort of started to become very popular a few years actually after my apprenticeship. So I finished my trade in 2009. And after that, I started seeing the evolution of steel frames starting to come onto site. And for me, I don't really like working with steel, I'll be honest. I think it's a great product. I think it keeps your house straight and true and all that sort of jazz, and timber can't warp and all that, and steel can't warp or can't be eaten by termites and all that. It's got some really positives. But for me personally, I guess I'm a little bit old school in that regard, that I just preferred the working with timber. Working for myself, what was that like? Working for myself is stressful, man. I'll let you know, it's stressful. It's not for the faint-hearted. If you're going to go out there and either start your own business, essentially working for yourself, and have people working alongside you and all that sort of stuff, it's hard, man. It's stressful. You got to put yourself out there. You got to make yourself uncomfortable trying to get work in and advertise your business, and you always want to do the right thing by people, and build up a good brand and reputation. For me, the sort of side that I don't enjoy, I really enjoy being on the tools most of the time, but the other side of it is the bookwork and upkeep behind the scenes that carpenters, I guess, that aren't too educated around business aspect, we kind of push to the side. So for me, I was never really good at understanding GST and all that sort of stuff, and I think an education piece around that is probably pretty vital if you're an apprentice carpenter, or if you're going to think about working for yourself. I think understanding the taxation system and how you can minimise your tax, and the benefits, the pros and cons of being in a company structure and all that are really beneficial. Being self-employed as a carpenter, running my own small business, has been really rewarding. For me, one of the big reasons why I started working for myself, or created my own carpentry business, was so that I could have more time to give to my young kids. So it gets a little bit personal here. For me, my mum and dad, I used to be quite fast, right? I'm not going to toot my own horn too much, but I used to be quite a fast runner. And back in the day, I broke a school record, and I remember I was probably year 4, I think, in athletics carnival, and I came home with all these ribbons. The blue ones with the first on it, and I came home with a school record that I beat. So Joey Bond, I beat your school record back in the day, 97 I think it was, 98, something like that. And I came home, and I don't know, reflecting back on that, I would have loved to have my parents there, my mum and dad watching from the fence, but it just never happened. It just is what it is. And for me, starting a carpentry business allowed me the time to go and be more present as a parent, to attend my kids' dance classes, to attend my kids' swimming classes, all the extracurricular activities they have, rugby after school. To go and attend all those things is something that really resonated with me, and that's why I started my carpentry business. And also to pick them up from school. You know, I didn't really, the after school care thing is great, but for us as well, we kind of blend that in with our day-to-day routine. So, you know, I'll pick up the kids, or my wife will pick up the kids straight after work, or, you know, one of us will be there for 3:30 knockoff. And, you know, we always try to be there as much as we can for our kids, because, you know, for me personally, I didn't have a lot of that growing up, and having kids definitely puts a perspective on how I wanted to be as a parent for me personally, and the things that I wanted to, I guess, be more present at in terms of my kids. Some of the best and worst parts of being a tradesman in my 20s. Well, a fair few. You know, there were some really positives in terms of I was 20 years of age, you know, working on multi-million-dollar jobs with really good tradies, and then there was the other side of the payment. You know, like being a young kid or being a young man, you know, trying to putting in some good effort, trying to get rewarded for that effort. It never came. So for me, in 2009, I actually started first working for myself, and I don't know if you remember, but in Brisbane, 2009, the floods hit, and they hit the low-lying areas of the Brisbane River, so West End, Moggle, all through there. And I ended up getting a gig through a mate's dad, and we worked for Suncorp, and we started doing a lot of insurance work for them. And there were some issues behind the scenes, and, you know, we weren't getting paid on time, and we were getting paid sort of, you know, 28 an hour, and, you know, we kind of floated the idea of a wage increase, but that was never going to happen. And yeah, so, you know, rolling out of bed, driving around in a new ute with a brand new set of kit in a new trailer, just sort of started to not become worth it. You know, burning a fair bit of fuel all the time, and yeah, some of the jobs were absolutely horrendous. So yeah, probably those. At what point did I start to fall out of love of the trade, and why? I probably started to fall out of love once I started working for myself, really, that first time in 2009, 2010. I think just doing it for that long, and sort of a lot of my mates had lived their youth a little bit. Like, I remember in my first year, they would ring me, you know, on school holidays, because I was on site. They'd ring me and, oh, hey man, look, let's go catch up. We're going to have a barbecue around such and such, or we're going to go to the beach and going to go to the coast. We've got the car this week and whatever. And I couldn't do it. I was on site, you know, digging trenches. I'm like, boys, I'm on site with an excavator. Like, I can't help you. Can't come. You know, and then schoolies happened, and all the boys went off to schoolies. And, you know, I only went for, I think, the weekend. I literally did the Friday night, Saturday night, and then Sunday drove home. And, you know, I didn't really get to experience that, but it's not huge, but it was something sort of, at that point in time, I was like, man, this sucks, like being on the back of a broom and the boys are at the beach chilling. But I think post apprenticeship, working for myself was really where, you know, especially during the GFC, when no one really had a lot of money to spend, it was kind of a bit tough, and yeah, I just didn't really enjoy it outside of that. Were there moments that shaped who I am now, even outside of building? I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. Carpentry taught me a lot. Carpentry construction taught me a lot about myself. And, you know, particularly around the carpentry side, like I'm very pedantic about carpentry, because I know it and I love it. And I'm always learning, even when I'm on the tools. You know, I've been doing it for over 20 years now, and you know, for me, I'm always still learning different little tricks and trades, and or little tricks and tips, and trying to do things a little slightly different to the norm, just to see, can I do it that way? Oh yeah, I can do it that way. Is that a little bit faster or whatever? But any particular moments? No, I mean, there's been a lot of life lessons. There's been a lot of lessons around, for me, what, you know, showing me that I've got certain traits, showing me that I've got resilience to finish the carpentry apprenticeship, showing me that I can finish a carpentry apprenticeship, or can finish something to get an achievement, you know, get a reward for my effort, which was, doing a 4-year carpentry apprenticeship. At the end of that, I got a certificate to say I'm a qualified carpenter. Building these beautiful homes for people, being able to renovate, our own home with the help of my wife. She does all the design elements, and for me, I'm the labour side of things. So for us to renovate our home to a really beautiful spec has been really nice. As I said, I'm really pedantic about carpentry, so all the carpentry stuff I always do. I don't really like to sort of hand the reins to anyone else. That's just me being me. But all the other trades, we subcontract out. That's my carpentry journey so far. Still got some goals and aspirations around carpentry that I'll sort of not I guess put out there too much right now into the world of social media, but definitely working on a few different things in the background for when we get back to Australia. So stay tuned for that one. But thanks so much for listening to me yabber on about it. Appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.